Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wake Up with Haley this Tuesday morning. I'm so grateful to have you here. We are going to kick off this morning with a really amazing guest. She is one of my dear friends, and I cannot wait for you all to meet her. As you know, I'm Haley Garcia. I am a local real estate broker here in the Woodlands, Texas, and also an executive business coach. So let's get started. This morning, I have my dear friend, Dr. Amanda Nyland, here with us today. And as we bring her on, I am so excited to have her. Dr. Nyland, good morning. I am so grateful to have you. I know how busy you are, so thank you for carving out a few minutes to be with us and give us some of your wisdom today.
Absolutely.
To just kick off, I want to share with everyone who you are on a high level, and then I'll ask that you share a little bit more of your credentials with us. But aside from being just a wonderful human and friend of mine, Dr. Nylan is a board certified emergency medicine physician for almost 20 years now in the Houston area. And she's recently transitioned from hospital care to freestanding ER and concierge medicine. So, Dr. Nylan, will you give us just a little bit of your background so that our guests understand who you are and what the history of your professional life has been?
Yeah, sure. So I am a good old East Texas girl. Grew up deep in the country and went to Texas A&M for my undergrad, as good country girls do. And then, of course, I wanted to move to Dallas, so I worked very hard to get into UT Southwestern Medical School in Dallas. It was not an easy feat. It's a very highly ranked medical school, but I was ecstatic to be accepted there. And then the only place to go from there was straight to the Texas Medical Center to train in emergency medicine at Herman. Actually, still when Dr. Duke was there, so I got to train with him, which was an amazing experience. And then I went out into the world of emergency medicine, which is a very different beast than it is today.
Yes.
And it was exciting. And, it was fast paced and it was everything I wanted it to be. And, as I started to see problems arise, I wanted to be more involved. And I was offered position in administration. So I started as a medical director for a small hospital, and then it kind of blossomed from there. I became a regional medical director for East Texas for one of the largest ER staffing companies in the nation, which still is. And then the traveling really got to me after about 5 or 6 years. I had small children at home, and I decided it was really time to come home. And so I took the medical directorship at Conroe Regional, which is level 1 trauma center in our area. And I was there for the last 5 years. And then I just decided I wanted a different relationship with my patients. And, of course, the pandemic played a lot into kind of our practice. I mean, I think it impacted emergency medicine as much or more than any other field of medicine. And so I did transition into the world of freestanding emergency medicine. And from there, it kind of just blossomed that I realized I wanted to spend more time with my patients. And, I'd spent almost a decade doing administration, including clinical work, and I'd been helping my fellow physicians. And it's just that time in my career that I want to have a different relationship with patients now. And so that's how I've ended up in this seat today.
Such a long history of credentials, though. I mean, you really have seen it all, right? From start to finish, you've experienced, and then we put COVID on top of it, which I know, we stayed in semi-contact through all of COVID, and of course, the war stories are days long, right? So you absolutely have seen it from start to finish, and I'm really excited for you to get to share with everyone today what you're doing, because I think it is such a hidden gem, right, of a service that we don't really know as consumers is available to us. So I'm really excited to have you. Before we get started, as you may have seen on some of my other shows, I really like to start out with a piece of gratitude or something good that's going on in your world. It can be professional or personal. Would you just share with us something in these summer months that you're feeling really positive about right now?
Yeah. And, it waxes and wanes, whether it's positive or negative. But right now it's kind of savoring this last bit of time with my boys. They're getting older, and next year my oldest will be driving. He already, doesn't spend a ton of time with us. So this is the last summer, I think, that I have him where he can't really go anywhere unless I approve it. And so I'm trying to just take that all in and really be present with them.
It's so fun. It is so fun. I remember when he was born. Have we known each other that long?
Yeah. And when you say 20 years in practice, it makes me cringe because I really don't want to believe that I've been out of residency for 20 years.
Oh, time flies when we're having fun, right? It just does. Well, thank you. It's so funny that you say summer because for my piece of gratitude, I really am enjoying the summer months this year, despite our 100+ temperatures, right? It seems like, and I don't know if this is a combination of just post COVID and all of us realizing how much more we need to slow down a little bit. But I feel like the energy of this summer is a little bit more relaxed. And I've traveled quite a bit. I just got back from a sister trip in Mexico with my sister. So I agree with you. I am just really grateful for some summer months and a reprieve of just the busyness, right, that we keep in our daily lives so much. It's good for a little bit of a change.
Yes, for a short time.
So yes, exactly. And then back to school they go.
And routines.
Exactly. Yes, I know. We do. We are creatures of habit, right? So I've got some questions that I want to ask you today just to help really share the services that you're offering and really the medicine and the practice that is behind it. So to kick us off, will you just explain to us the main differences between concierge medicine and traditional medicine?
Sure. And, for sure, the concept of concierge medicine is newer to this area, but, in other parts of the country, it's been around for quite a while. There's numerous models on how this can be done. So, I will share our model or my model of how we practice, which the biggest difference, and I think what people are gravitating so much towards is access to your physician, right? Because even now, say you wake up, you feel terrible, you think you have COVID, you don't know if you should go to work, you don't know what you should do, call your doctor's office. Well, you can't come here because you have COVID, or you will give you an appointment in 2 days. The
Right.
concierge model is totally different than that. It's really in its purest form and kind of the 30,000 feet view is reestablishing an intimate relationship between patient and doctor again. Back to the days where my great grandmother would tell me, oh, no, Dr. So-and-so, he would come to the house with the bag and, baby, I'm not delivering babies in the house, but babies were born in the house, everything happened at the home. And
Yes.
we will come into your home with the advent of COVID. The one really positive thing for us is it's really opened up and kind of normalized telemedicine calls and being able to see people from remotely.
Yes.
Because, we're licensed to see people all over the state. My license allows me to have patients all over the state. And so it's opened up kind of this whole group of people that normally wouldn't have access to you. And it's made things so easy. And I think patients really appreciate access and ease,
Yes.
transparency, right? Like we try to make really difficult things simple for navigating the medical system.
Yes.
And also, I think just knowing your doctor on a personal level, like if you're my concierge patient, I know you, I know your kids, I know your family, and you know who I am.
Right. No, it's you really underestimate the value of that, especially when you were the one feeling sick, right? If you feel miserable or you've really got a health crisis going on, the value that adds and the calming of ourselves as the patient, right, is really invaluable.
Yeah, that really is.
So will you talk to us about any sort of limitations that you face when caring for concierge patients? Give us a little bit of rundown on what you see that might be a challenge or a limitation, if any.
Yeah. So it's actually interesting because that was my biggest hesitation going in, as an ER doctor. I mean, emergency services are even, you can argue emergency rooms are not good. And for a lot of things, they're not.
Right.
But emergency services are the fastest, most skilled kind of set of medicine or care that you're going to get. It's also the most expensive, right? And so I was very nervous, like, well, if I see this patient and I want blood work or I want a CAT scan, or how am I going to, I'm over a video or I'm in their home and I just have like my stethoscope and usual things. But it's actually interesting. There are really no limitations. I can still, I am an ER doctor. So I know when I see someone, if I look at them or I visit them in their home, you need to go to the ER, then you need to go to the ER.
Right.
And so then all bets are off. I don't need those resources.
Yeah.
But for urgent and routine care, I can get labs done. We can get urine done, urine analysis done. I can strep test you in home. I can COVID test you in home. I can flu test you in home. Actually, we give medications in home. So, you have a bad, say, urinary tract infection, and you don't want to go to the hospital and sit in the ER for 4 hours getting IV antibiotics. I can do that in your home. So there's really, I feel like the limitations I was worried about, if you just talk to the patient about them and we work out, emergency medicine doctors are also masters of kind of figuring out the unknown or navigating a system or finding an alternative way to do things.
Right.
And I think that is very helpful in this case. And additionally, something that is really even an added benefit is I still work in an emergency center. So if you do need to go to the ER, I can just tell you, come there and meet me and I'll take care of you there. And when's the last time you walked into the emergency room and got to see your doctor, like your primary or your main doctor? Never.
Never. Right. Yeah. Which is huge. And I think it's such a good point, because we as the consumers forget that you as emergency medicine physicians are trained to diagnose everything from an emergency standpoint. Right. So
yeah.
It's really important and valuable, because you're scanning the entire body as a whole to then pinpoint what's actually going on.
We definitely see signs and signals before, someone not trained in emergency medicine would. And it's interesting because, emergency medicine as a specialty has only been around since 1972. And ER doctors in general and our organization, ASAP, has really fought to make us specialists. It pushed us to be really good at certain things that other people or other specialties are not good at, so that we carved a niche for ourselves that's really irreplaceable now. And then, the other thing is, which mostly it was a complaint in the past decade, but because of the medical system, the way it is in the United States, and to be quite honest, flailing, if not failing, probably 70% of what is sent or comes in the emergency room is not an emergency. So while we would get very frustrated with that as ER doctors, what it's done is it's taught me how to do routine care, urgent care, and emergent care. So it's really, now looking back, it's actually a blessing, because, it's really been kind of priming me for being able to feel comfortable in this role.
Right. That makes complete sense. No, it makes complete sense. And you kind of answered this already, but I'm going to ask it anyways. As you are working in the concierge medical practice, why are you seeing more patients choosing that route versus traditional medicine?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, and like you said, I touched on it before, it's access, it's knowing your doctor. I mean, when you call our office number, if it's a weekday, you're going to see me that same day, maybe in a few hours. If I'm in the emergency room, it's a little more challenging, but that's why I have a partner, Dr. Casper, and we cover each other's patients. So if he's in the emergency room, I see his patients. If I'm in the emergency room, he can see my patients. And if it's a weekend, probably 12 hours at the most is what you're going to wait to be able to see. I take care of patients at 7:00 at night. I'm on the phone talking to someone. And so the access is a big thing. Also, I think the uncertainty, right? Yes. Like when you go to your doctor's office and there's in my practice, there's no quotas, there's no patients per hour, there's no restrictions on how I interact with you. And I think patients really appreciate that now more than ever, because I think we're all, like you said, coming off this pandemic and everything, we're looking for human connection again, right? We tried to automate things as much as possible. Yes. And now it's like, all we want is to actually see a human and talk to a human and feel like they're listening to me and they're hearing what I'm saying. And they're invested in my healthcare as well, that I'm not just a checkbox and get out of a room.
Correct. I'm not just a number any longer. You actually know me as a human, which is huge. It's huge. I completely agree with you. And talk to us too a little bit about, let's say you see me and you feel that I need to be referred to a cardiologist, because I know just from knowing you that is definitely one of the benefits. Share the specialty referral in the event that you feel that needs to be made.
Yeah, I feel like, our healthcare now is very specialty based, right? So, you have a stomach ache, it's not something totally routine. You're going to get sent to a gastroenterologist, right. Which, I think some of those referrals are inappropriate, just like some of the referrals to the emergency room are inappropriate.
Yes.
But I would say it's actually an advantage having, again, being an emergency medicine doctor doing this, because I've worked in this area, Woodlands, Spring, Tomball, and even in East Texas now for, like 20 years. I talked to every type of specialist for years and years and years. So, I've got a long roster of people I know. And if I need you to see someone and you're having trouble getting an appointment, like you will, because, just recently, my aunt, who has a very significant cardiac, our family history for cardiac pathology is very high.
Mhm.
And she was having some difficulties, and her doctor said, you really need to go see this cardiologist. So I'm following up with her. Did you see him? Did you, no, they were supposed to call. They haven't called. 3 weeks. And she called them to get the appointment. So where we are such a benefit is helping patients navigate that system. I'm not going to let my patient wait if I think they need to be seen by a cardiologist, I'm going to pick up the phone and say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, I have this really great patient. This is what's going on. Do you mind just trying to get them in? And it is actually a huge benefit to patients. And it takes this kind of unknown out of navigating the system, right? Because
Right.
patients leave, they're like, what do I do with this piece of paper? Is someone going to call me? What's going to happen?
Yes, you get lost in the mix of becoming a number. Whereas with your services, you get that personal hand-to-hand referral and somebody behind the scenes following up based on a relationship that's really helping get the service that the patient needs.
Yep.
Which, when we're dealing with our health and life-threatening situations like our heart, or it's kind of important, right?
Yeah.
Those things really matter.
I think now more than ever, and not to relate everything back to COVID, but it's totally changed the way we live. It's changed the way we practice medicine. It's changed everything.
It
I
has.
think now more than ever, people are understanding that your health is the biggest asset you have. I mean, there's nothing beyond your health, because all of us, we've either been critically ill with COVID, know a friend, a family member, acquaintance, a neighbor, someone that has really been affected by this. And it changed. I mean, nothing else matters after that if you're not healthy and you're not functional.
It doesn't. It doesn't. It's so true. And I agree. I mean, I think overall society's awareness of that has been raised exponentially, right?
Yes.
Just
Yes.
because of what we've all experienced for the past few years, especially you all that have been, on the front lines, but all of us have had a family member or ourselves touched in one way or another. That, prior to COVID, we probably just had no awareness of. We just went about, oh, if we got sick, it was,
You get
something.
better. Yeah.
Right. Right.
And prior to COVID, you expect your 90-year-old aunt to not feel good or be ill, but you certainly don't expect your 24-year-old neighbor to get critically ill.
Exactly.
So it's really changed perspective for people, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. So tell us a little bit about what patients can expect, and when they use your concierge services, give us what they can expect, and also tell us a little bit more in detail of what services you actually do, because I know that I've heard of several of them, and I really want you to share, just so people know really what the full scope looks like.
Yeah, essentially, kind of just a synopsis, anything that can be done in a doctor's office or an urgent care, we can take care of, right? So when you call, you'll speak to Mallory, who is she's our office person. She's amazing. She answers the phone like really, I don't know how she keeps up, because she keeps up with 2 phones.
Yes.
But so you'll speak to her, kind of explain, what you're wanting, or, what your problem is. And she'll send you new patient paperwork. It's all jot form. It's very easy to fill out. It's all electronic. It goes straight to her. And then she calls me and puts you on the schedule. And it's so seamless. She'll say, hey, can you see someone at 2:00 today? Yeah, of course I can. And then you can choose a video call. If I get on a video call with you and I think you're a little more ill, I think you may need other things, why don't you let me come to your house? We can choose to do that. If we do a house visit, we can administer. So we do actually IV hydration drips with all the usual vitamins that you're used to seeing, right? Vitamin C, glutathione, zinc, all of those things, especially in COVID. That's been a very, I've watched people feel so much better just getting the vitamins and the fluids. And then we can do IV antibiotics. We can do all the testing that I referenced earlier. And then again, making all those referrals. We've even had patients that call in or just said, I was diagnosed with this, or my family member was diagnosed with this, and I don't understand this at all. Can you just explain this to me?
Mm-hmm. Which is huge.
Because I think that now, with time being so limited and insurance companies kind of governing how many patients per hour doctors see and the time limitations, your doctor in the office sometimes just, it's not there. They still want to do the best and they want to be good and they
Yes.
want to fulfill all their patients' needs, but they don't have the resources to be able to do that. Whereas I can sit down with them for an hour, 30 minutes, hour, and answer all the questions.
Yes. And I think that's such a good point, because we as the end user forget that there is a major business being run behind the scenes. And unfortunately, the doctors are held to a lot of those guidelines, as you mentioned, that we as the patient have no idea about. So the doctor may cause us to feel like we're just a number, but in actuality, they're having to stick to these guidelines that the business is requiring them to do. And unfortunately, when you're an ill patient or you have a family member that's ill, you don't actually care about the business.
Nothing else matters, right? Like the other person's requirements don't matter.
That's
And
it.
it's so true. I actually have a lot of empathy for physicians trying to eke out a living right now, to be quite honest.
Yes.
I won't go into all the reasons why on that.
That's a whole separate show, right?
Yeah, I could talk about that for a long time.
Yes.
But even in the emergency room, the highest level of care. I mean, we're taking my previous job, I'm taking care of level 1 trauma patients. I mean, these are critically ill,
Right.
on the cusp of death trauma patients,
Right.
heart attacks, strokes, all of these things. But I also held that, you should be seeing 2.7 patients an hour. I mean, what the kind of stress and mental anguish that puts on a physician is just, I really sympathize. So when I see people in the emergency room, especially in the freestandings where I have much more time and I'll explain whatever their disease process and what they can expect, they say, "Thank you so much. No one's explained it to me." I always try to kind of take up for any primary care doctor, anyone that they've touched before, because these people are just so they're stretched so thin.
Yeah, no, they really are. And my sister, who is an emergency room nurse, and just this morning she texted me as she got off of a night shift, and she said, I'm always checking in with her, like, how was your night? How were things? And almost every morning she is reporting to me, it was not good because I had 30 people waiting in the waiting room all night long. Like,
Yeah.
as soon as they would get one back, another one would come in. And you're speaking to that, right? On so many different levels. It's just such a continued issue, not only for the nurses and the doctors, of course, right? Because they're trying to do their best to care for everyone, but for the patient also. I mean, the last thing you want to do when you are critically ill is sit in a waiting room for 8 hours.
Yes. And I would say, even if, you and the whole family feel terrible and you all need, some IV fluids, things like that, maybe you have COVID, whatever, the last thing anyone wants to do is go sit in this emergency room and then, in a waiting room, and then expose yourself to all of these other things that are out there. And
Right.
then, it's like anything else. It's the fear of the unknown and the lack of kind of setting expectations. So when you sit down in that waiting room, you don't know if you're going to wait an hour, 6 hours. And then if you get back to the back, what's going to happen? Maybe they're just going to send you home,
Right.
And
Right.
that's where I think our services are so beneficial, because number one, you don't have to leave your house to get treatment if you don't want to. You
Right.
don't have to sit in a waiting room. You don't have to be turned away without getting the treatment you feel like you need.
Right.
And ultimately, if I send you to the emergency room, it's because I know what's going to happen there, and I know you need an evaluation. You need something ruled out that is just a necessity. But if I don't need to send you to the emergency room, I'm going to do everything I can to preserve those resources for patients that truly, truly have to have those resources, because the resources are so thin. Manpower, nursing, especially. I mean, it's the system is really this blow of, it was already flailing, and the blow of COVID has really
Taking its toll.
It's really changed emergency medicine.
Yeah, it really has. Well, on that note, because I know this is probably something that everyone is thinking, because I know I was before we hired you with my family. How expensive is this? Because when I listen to you talk, it sounds amazing, right? And of course, my first thought is there's probably no way my family and I can afford to have you come to our home. So will you just give us a rundown on how does insurance coverage work, and how expensive is this to get this one-on-one concierge service?
Sure. It's actually not prohibitive like people think it is. So, and like I mentioned before, there's different models of concierge. So there are some models that are prohibitive, even what I would consider prohibitive, right? There's a model where you pay a yearly retainer, and it could be anywhere up to like $10,000 just for access. We actually don't do retainers at all. So that's one area where you don't get any of that kind of added inflated, payment. And so all of our service is essentially fee for service. For the services, we do not use insurance. That's how we keep the care individualized. That's how we keep our autonomy in medical decision making and protect our time. And so, for an example, a telemedicine visit is $150. It's totally a la carte, right? So I'm not going to then tell you, I have to sell you this package and things like that. It's none of that. And after that visit, you can decide, oh, okay, it's, $200 for you to come to my home, give me IV antibiotics, whatever. Yes, I want to do that. Or you can decide, no, I think I'll just go to the urgent care and use my insurance. That's fine, totally fine. Now, if we refer you outside of our services, so to the urgent care for lab testing, any of that, you use your insurance. All that is the same. If I send you to get a CAT scan or I send you to get lab tests, we file that all through that all goes through your insurance. You don't pay anything different for that.
Yeah.
You really just pay for our specific services. And we have totally a la carte services with fees. And then for families that were using our services a lot and they realized it was adding up, we do have kind of family memberships that are monthly, but there's no retainer fee. There's no, outlandish thousands of dollars you're going to pay me to have on call, that kind of stuff.
So it's really affordable. And I know I was really surprised because, of course, my father is really ill with Parkinson's. And for me to have access to you and for you to be able to care for him as things come up outside of his neurologist, which is a 6-month waiting period, right?
Yeah.
Was really important. And I was so happy when I learned that it is fee for service. So when we need you, we call you, and it is very affordable.
Exactly.
$150 or $300 to have you come to the home is worth its weight in gold versus me getting him into the wheelchair and trying to transport him to the doctor's office or to, right? Like
especially if you don't need to go, right? Maybe he just needs a urinalysis. Okay, we'll come get a urine from him.
Exactly.
And, I think that's a big key is that you can individualize, you and I together can individualize your care. You can use your primary care doctor for what you want to use them for. You have all your specialists the same way you would use them. But if you don't feel well or you need a quick visit to get a prescription for sinusitis or things like that, then we're here and it's easy and affordable.
So accessible. We've got a question from one of the viewers that asks, can HSA be used for payment? Can you answer that?
No.
It cannot.
So no, we really don't, because the problem is when you start accepting those type of things, whether it's insurance or health savings plan, you open yourself up to a different set of regulation that you get involved essentially with the government, right?
Right.
So the whole different yeah. And when I say regulations, I don't mean how your medical care, the quality of your medical care. I mean papers we have to file, fees we have to pay, and then guess what happens to the price? Tick, tick, tick,
Absolutely.
tick.
Absolutely.
And that's where medical care is right now. We are trying to boil down to the simplest relationship. Me, you pay for my service, and that's it. Maybe if inflation keeps going, you can pay me in chickens or cattle or whatever.
But it's affordability and it's access. That's really what I hear you saying. It really is. It's those are two key things: affordability and access.
And individualized care. It's what you want it to be. It's what you need from me. Whatever it is, we're here to help you with it.
Right. It's so great. And tell us a little bit. I know you also work in alternative health services. Will you give us a little bit of information on what that is and what it means?
Yeah, for sure. I also joined, so Dr. Casper, who is my colleague, and I joined his group. He actually started Woodlands Cannabis Clinic last year out of necessity from one of his concierge patients, because a little known fact, and little known to me actually until the past few months, is that medicinal cannabis has been legal in the state of Texas since 2015. The problem is at that time, the qualifying diagnoses were very, very narrow. So really like end of life things, devastating neurologic, neurodegenerative things like your father,
right.
Terminal cancer, those kind of things. So what happened is at the end of September of last year, the legislature passed actually 4 new qualifying diagnoses, and 2 of those are very broad, and it has allowed so many more people to qualify for this care. And that is PTSD, which many military and civilian, especially our EMS providers, even just so many people suffer from silently, and maybe they don't even know they have it. They just know they're anxious and they're jumpy, and
Right.
and then also neuropathy, which is any kind of nerve pain. And so those two diagnoses has allowed us to qualify a lot of patients that wouldn't have qualified before for the medicinal compassionate cannabis program. And so it's all through the state of Texas. It's all very regulated through the state of Texas. Dr. Casper and I are both registered prescribers. It all goes through the DPS website. And it's actually been amazing because, this plant has been around and used by civilizations for 5,000 years. Okay.
Wow.
Every civilization that has found this plant has taken it with them for its medicinal use, not for, to get high, whatever.
Yes.
And in fact, before its criminalization in the United States, it used to be used for menstrual cramps and all kinds of things. But as soon as it was criminalized, then guess what? It's a Schedule I drug. You can't do studies on it. You can't do trials of anything to see what its uses are. And that's all changing very rapidly now, because what we do know is, it was kind of more studied around 1995 or so, is that we actually have an endocannabinoid system. So we have receptors deep in our brains that recognize the THC molecule, because we have molecules, neurotransmitters in our body that are so similar in structure to that molecule. And it's really opened up realizing how effective this medication is when prescribed and when used in correct dosages to affect our sleep, our anxiety, our mood, all of these things, and pain. So instead of being on narcotic pain medicine and benzodiazepines and things that as an emergency physician, we see so much suffering, and then people are put on these medications and then there's more suffering, it can actually work in place of those things and give people such a quality of life. And I've seen it in just short months, which I was a believer before, but it's just amazing now that it can be prescribed and titrated and dose controlled.
Yeah, it is really such a gift, right? And also to know that it is so controlled and it's being overseen by physicians like yourself, to where it is not a place for people to go get their recreational use, right?
Correct.
That is such a game changer.
Yeah. And in fact, we weed out those people very quickly and easily, because if you're looking for it for recreational use, you're not going to like what the medicinal does for you, because it doesn't make you drowsy. We prescribe it in a way that you're totally functional during the day, and then you get a great night of sleep. And we can target those symptoms that are really, really bothering you.
Yeah. So good. I am so grateful to have you share all of this information with everybody today. I know that you do such an amazing job of caring for my family. So thank you. We really couldn't get through my father's illness without you, or all the other things that I'm constantly texting and asking you. So I'm really grateful for your time today and for you sharing everything with us. Will you tell everyone your group's website, so that if they want to see you or if they want to investigate the concierge medicine more, where they can find you?
Sure. So right now it's Dr. Casper's Concierge Medical Group is the website. My personal website is still under construction. And then also Woodlands Cannabis Clinic is the other website. There are two separate numbers, two separate businesses. But if you call the number, you'll get Mallory,
who is amazing.
And she will take care of everything. I don't know how she juggles everything.
She is amazing. And, I'll share really quickly. She, for one of the appointments with my father, she was so great because I was busy at work, and she called my mom and walked her through exactly everything. And I was so grateful for that. So Mallory is wonderful. Well, thank you, Dr. Nylan, for being on with us this morning. I really, really appreciate you as a friend and a physician. So keep making changes in the world like you are. And I would love to have you back on the show again one day. So everyone, thank you for being on Wake Up with Haley. You know that our next show will be Tuesday, July 19th. We again are on the first and third Tuesdays at 7:30 a.m. sharp to rise, shine, and live aligned. Thank you for being with us today, and have a wonderful day.